Eerie Tales from the Appalachian Mountains. Introduction to Chilling Stories. Welcome to a haunting journey through the Appalachian Mountains, where beauty meets terror in some of the most unsettling real-life stories. This compilation revisits 12 unforgettable tales previously shared on this channel, featuring stalkers, mysterious figures, and unexplained phenomena that linger long after hearing them. For new viewers, I hope these stories captivate you as much as they did me while gathering them. Returning viewers, thank you for joining. Again, I'm already working on fresh, spine-chilling narratives to keep you up at night. Viewer discretion is advised as we delve into the darkness, the gas station encounter and van ambush. In the summer of 2014, I lived in southern Appalachia, near Asheville, North Carolina, where the ancient mountains over 1 billion years old carry a mystical aura, steeped in folklore like the brown mountain lights I'd often seen. Respecting the land was a family mantra, and I felt at home in its eerie embrace. My girlfriend, from Ontario, Canada, and I planned a road trip to visit her family, but a detour to check on my grandmother, recovering from the flu, turned our journey into a 24-hour drive. We broke it up with stops, starting with a scenic drive through Buffalo and Pittsburgh, where a stunning sunset painted the sky. Entering West Virginia, the wilderness deepened, with endless forests and sparse towns. Low on gas, we found a remote station as dusk fell, its flickering lights casting an ominous glow. My girlfriend, joking about horror movie cliches, stayed in the van while I fueled up. A woman in her 50s, with an unsettling, possibly drugged demeanor, appeared, staring with wide eyes. No car in sight, I asked if she needed help, signaling my girlfriend to lock the doors. Inside, the cashier's casual demeanor turned grim upon seeing her. He grabbed a rifle, warning me she was part of a dangerous group tied to local disappearances. I paid, rushed back, and drove off, telling my girlfriend only that the area was unsafe. Miles later, we rested in a clearing. At 3 a.m., footsteps and voices woke us. Someone rattled the van's handle. I aimed my handgun through the window, spotting the woman and several men with hollow gazes. They backed off into the trees, and we sped away, never returning, haunted by their empty eyes and the mystery of how they tracked us. The silent forest phantom. A few years ago, after a breakup and job burnout, I drove solo through the Blue Ridge and Smoky Mountains, seeking solitude in the Great Smoky Mountains National Park. In mid-October, post-foliage season, I camped near Clingman's Dome, off a remote trail from Forney Ridge. Hiking in with minimal gear, the overgrown trail was silent, no hikers, no wildlife. By 3:30 p.m., I set up near a creek, its canopy creating a serene, shaded spot. After dinner, darkness enveloped the forest, my headlamp barely piercing the void. Despite my camping experience, I couldn't sleep, an inexplicable pressure keeping me alert. Past midnight, a human cough broke the silence, 20-30 yards away near the trail. Unzipping my tent, I saw a woman by the creek, 10-15 feet away, her back to me, long hair tangled, dress torn. She didn't react to my light, remaining still as if lost. Scanning the area revealed no one else. But when I looked back, she vanished, no footsteps, no sound. Bare footprints in the damp earth confirmed her presence. But she was gone. Terrified of her reappearing, I packed and hiked out, reporting the surreal encounter to park rangers, unsure of what I'd witnessed in that isolated clearing. The Stalker, in the 100-mile wilderness. Last spring, as an experienced trail runner, I ventured into Maine's 100-mile wilderness, the Appalachian Trail's most isolated stretch, for a 2-night, 3-day solo trip. Starting at 7 a.m. near Monson, the trail was rugged and empty. I camped by a dried-up creek the first night, the silence unnerving but uneventful. On day 2, I found recent boot prints zigzagging erratically, suggesting someone lost or impaired, alongside a neatly folded candy wrapper, an odd, deliberate act. Later, more prints followed the same chaotic pattern, and at noon, I heard footsteps 30-40 feet behind on a ridge. They stopped abruptly, and no one answered my call. Uneasy, I hurried to camp early. Checking the perimeter, nothing seemed amiss until I found another identical folded candy wrapper on my pack. That night, around 3 a.m., deliberate pacing and heavy breathing circled 20 feet away. I shouted I was armed, and the sounds ceased. No retreating steps, just silence. At dawn, I fled, spotting a man with a scruffy beard 50 yards back, watching. He raised a gun as I ran, using trees for cover, and escaped to my car. Rangers dismissed him as a transient, but online, others shared similar tales, folded papers with names, a baby shoe, unseen followers, a loaded gun heard at night suggesting a sinister presence haunting that trail. The fire tower, night terror. In early spring, craving warmth after winter, I hiked to Rich Mountain Fire Tower on the Tennessee-North Carolina border near Hot Springs, drawn by my grandfather's legacy as a lookout ranger. His stories of guarding forests had inspired my love for fire towers, though life led me elsewhere. After his passing, I inherited his journals, recently finding the courage to explore them. The trail to Rich Mountain, a tower he'd worked at, was my goal. The story cuts off here, but the context suggests an upcoming eerie encounter at the tower, likely tied to the grandfather's history and the isolation of the location. Haunting experiences in the Appalachian Mountains. The Fire Tower Mystery. After my grandfather's passing, I inherited his journals, which revealed unsettling entries about his time at Rich Mountain Fire Tower on the Tennessee-North Carolina border. Unlike his usual composed writing, these notes from the post-World War II era were frantic, describing sleepless nights, a persistent feeling of being watched footsteps on the tower stairs after dark, and a fear of something lurking beneath the bed. After 6 weeks, he was reassigned, never mentioning the experience to me. Driven to uncover the truth, I planned a trip to stay at the tower. The 5.2-mile round-trip trail, a moderate uphill hike through early spring woods, took about 3 hours. I passed a few day hikers, but the tower, slightly off the main path, was empty. The first night, a sharp metallic thud woke me at 3 a.m., like something struck the stairs, but silence followed, leaving me uneasy. The next day, I explored nearby trails, enjoying the solitude of budding trees and quiet winds. But the previous night's sound lingered. At dusk, I cooked dinner, read more of my grandfather's entries, and secured the hatch, though his words fueled my imagination. Around 1:30 a.m., faint, deliberate movements below, not animal-like, jolted me awake. The sound ceased, and I drifted back to sleep, waking at dawn to a seemingly normal scene. I dismissed it as nerves, finding no signs of disturbance during the day. That night I left my muddy boots outside the hatch, a camping habit, and fell asleep, haunted by my grandfather's words. If it comes again tonight, I don't think I'll make it until morning. I awoke to the hatch slightly ajar, a cold breeze seeping in. Outside, a black human-shaped silhouette hung from the ceiling, no details visible. I leapt up, and it vanished without a sound. No footsteps, just silence. My boots were gone. The hatch had been latched. No wind or animal could have opened it silently. I locked it, sat with my pocket knife until dawn, then descended barefoot, finding no tracks or boots in the clearing. I hiked down quickly, drove to a motel, and collapsed, never sharing the story. Online searches yielded no similar accounts, leaving me questioning if I imagined it, yet the doubts persist, echoing my grandfather's fear. The Whisper in the Woods. In Swords Creek, Virginia, deep in the Appalachian Mountains, I've lived my whole life, raised with unwritten rules about the forest rules I never broke, respecting the land as my grandfather taught. He believed mutual respect with the wood's unseen inhabitants kept us safe, a belief that comforted me despite the region's eerie folklore. I avoided the woods after dark, adhering to this code with reverence. Last spring, my friend Reggie died in an accident, leaving me and our friend James devastated. On the 1-year anniversary, we honored Reggie with drinks on my patio, near the dense forest surrounding my isolated home. Grief and alcohol clouded the night. My cats, usually calm, meowed anxiously at the windows but seemed unharmed. James, heavily drunk, insisted on walking home a 7-minute trek despite my offer to let him stay. Against my instincts, I walked him through the woods, breaking my rule to ensure his safety. His journey was uneventful, but on my return, the forest fell into an unnatural silence. As my house came into view, a whisper called my name, Reggie's voice. Drawn by grief, I nearly crossed into the deep woods, but snapped back, realizing Reggie was gone. I bolted home, locking everything, my cats mirroring my unease. My grandfather's words now felt like a warning. I tried dismissing it as a drunken hallucination, but the nights grew heavier, a watchful presence lingering. My cats refused to approach windows after dark. I told James, inviting him over. He replied he'd stop by after work, but a knock came while I showered. Thinking it was James, I shouted to use the spare key, but the house felt unnaturally cold. The front door was wide open. James texted he was delayed at work. Someone had entered. I found nothing, but my cats hid, frozen, as if sensing something I couldn't. A deep fear settled in. I'd broken the rules, and something in the forest wouldn't forgive. The van attack in Vermont. Last year, I drove my converted van along the Appalachian route from Maine to Georgia to visit my cousin, a scenic journey I'd taken multiple times, always alone with my cat, Miley. As a woman, I took precautions, feeling safer in my van, though that proved deceptive. On day 3, I camped in Vermont's Green Mountains on a quiet dirt road, rarely used since a newer route opened. I set up the night before, enjoying a peaceful morning. By afternoon, I dozed outside, reluctant to lose the sunlight filtering through the trees, but stayed alert enough not to sleep exposed. Around 3 p.m., Miley's restless meowing woke me. I fed her, but she ignored the food, staring at me. A car approached 3 men inside, staring intensely as they slowed down. An instinctive fear gripped me. I grabbed Miley, locked the van, and hid in the vegetation. Within minutes, the men returned, rummaging through my things, one firing a gunshot to break the van's window. I stifled a scream, calming Miley, and fled deeper into the woods. My phone was dead, but I recalled a gas station 30 minutes away. Running, a branch snapped behind me. I sprinted without looking back, reaching the empty station. The cashier, sensing my panic, called the police and hid me in the storage room, arming me with a small gun. The men arrived, but the cashier confronted them, warning of police. They left, and officers escorted me to a hotel, stationing a guard outside. 2 days later, my parents drove me home, the terror of that encounter lingering. Unsettling encounters in the Appalachian region. The Hitchhiker's secret 15 years ago. I lived in Maine, West Virginia, a small Appalachian town most people pass through without a second glance. I was at a low point, working grueling hours at a warehouse near an old strip mine, the kind of job that drained me daily, leaving me hollow. One night, after a late shift, I drove home around 3 a.m. along the deserted Route 52 between the mining facility and my neighborhood near Gilbert. Exhausted, I barely registered my surroundings until I spotted a figure on the roadside near mile marker 71. Initially mistaking him for a deer, I realized it was a young man in a hoodie, hands in pockets, head down. Against my usual caution, especially in such a remote area, I slowed down, pulled over, and let him in. He gave a name, asked to be dropped off south, and sat stiffly, clutching a worn backpack. I assumed he was a runaway or an ill-prepared hiker, a common sight with kids romanticizing the Appalachian wilderness, only to regret it. He barely spoke, answering my small talk with curt replies, staring out the window. I noticed his boots caked in mud, his jeans stained with dark, uneven marks, and a faint metallic smell like rust lingering in the air. 20 minutes in, we hit a roadblock, 2 patrol cars with officers checking IDs, unusual for the area. My passenger tensed as an officer questioned us, giving a different name than he'd told me. The officer mentioned bodies had been found nearby, a detail his superior quickly hushed. We were waved through, but the car's atmosphere turned heavy. I drove on, my hands trembling, avoiding side roads to not raise suspicion. 10 minutes later, he got a message, panicked, and demanded to be let out, growing aggressive. I pulled over. He bolted into the darkness. I drove to a gas station and called the police, describing him beard, light hair, and my concerns. They confirmed his description but found no record of the incident later, leaving me questioning my sanity. No news, no follow-up, just dirt on the seat as proof. I've never found answers, and the silence haunts me. The Bones and the Midnight Runner. In Harper's Ferry, West Virginia, I've always cherished early spring, when nature reawakens a true new year for me. I planned a 3-day solo hike on an Appalachian trail, seeking solitude off the main paths in a secluded clearing I'd camped at before, featuring 2 open spaces by a still pond. I set up camp, enjoying the untouched beauty, until I found a decayed skull in the undergrowth while gathering firewood, followed by a bone I recognized as a human tibia. Local rumors of disappearances, paired with videos I'd watched the night before about regional serial killers, fueled my paranoia. I resolved to leave at dawn, but around 11 p.m., footsteps and rustling in the bushes set me on edge. Then violent splashing came from the pond like someone in distress. Clutching my knife, I crept out and saw a naked man sprinting wildly through the trees on the pond's opposite side, a surreal and disturbing sight. I packed essentials, noticing my food bag hung to deter bears was torn apart on the ground, though without the expected bear damage. I fled to my car, called the police about the bones, and later found a Reddit post from Derek, who'd been at the same pond that night. He'd stripped for a midnight swim, only to be interrupted by a bear rummaging through his clothes. Fleeing naked, he matched the man I saw, while the bear explained the food bag. We met through the post, became friends, and now laugh about our terrifying encounter, though many don't believe our tale. The Roadside Threat. A year ago, on a solo road trip through the Appalachians, I drove at night to avoid the heat in my old car without AC. Starting at 10:30 p.m. through a remote stretch of West Virginia, a place I'd always felt uneasy about after a past hiking mishap. The dark, winding roads were eerily quiet, with only distant lights from isolated homes breaking the solitude. A sudden, intense flashlight beam cut through the trees, but I didn't stop, unnerved by the area's vibe. Miles later, a health condition forced me to pull over to relieve myself. As I did, a man emerged from the shadows, screaming, pointing a rifle at me, demanding a ride or he'd take my car by force. Too close to reach my glove box pistol, I let him in, pleading for calm while he kept the gun on me, his wild, bloodshot eyes darting to the mirrors. He refused to say where he was going, just to drive. After a tense stretch, my headlights revealed a man lying in the road, an obvious trap, with a car hidden in the vegetation. 2 men charged from the trees, one firing at us, as my passenger muttered they'd kill him if they caught him. I floored it, swerving to avoid the body, realizing we'd both be dead if caught. He rejected calling the police, threatening me again. Spotting headlights closing in, I turned off mine, veered onto a muddy trail, and shut off the engine. We hid as the pursuers sped past, their powerful vehicle confirming my decision. We crept back to the road, driving by moonlight for an hour, until he thanked me hoarsely, asking to be dropped at the next town. He vanished into the streets, and I found a motel to collapse in. The police investigated but found no trace of him or the attackers, closing the case a month ago. I'll never drive through that part of West Virginia again. Disturbing tales from the Appalachian wilderness. The Watcher on the Ridge. 3 years ago, after my uncle's sudden death, I returned to his remote home outside War, West Virginia, in mid-January. The deep cold seemed to freeze the landscape, and the drive from Welch was tense, narrow roads, blind curves, and coal trucks dominating the route. Between Coalwood and Ketta, the dense trees swallowed the sky, creating a tunnel of shadows with only occasional trailers hinting at life. His house, a sagging relic at the ridge's base, was cluttered with hoarded junk, reflecting his reclusive nature. The first night's silence was oppressive, amplifying my pulse in the absence of traffic or neighbors just whined. And creaks from the woods, which felt alive with a watchful presence. On the second day, I hiked up an old logging road for a cell signal, noticing the unchanged, muddy trails from my childhood. A mile up, in a clearing overlooking the hollow, an instinctual unease gripped me. Not fear, but a primal warning. Turning back, I spotted footprints in the damp earth, not mine, trailing into steep, overgrown terrain no one would choose. Following their path with my gaze, I saw a vague, human-like shape, standing still among the trees, shadowed and unmoving. Yet its gaze pierced me. A flicker of recognition stirred something familiar, yet unsettling from my youth, prompting me to flee without looking back. That night, I locked everything, keeping a knife by my bed, every sound amplifying my paranoia. I left at dawn, abandoning the house, and later asked my brother about the woods. He mentioned a name our grandmother gave it, but refused to elaborate, leaving me with recurring dreams of that presence. Her words echoing, "You don't need ghosts when you have the mountains, they'll eat you just the same." The Stalkers in the forest. 2 years ago in October, my friends Ashley, Brooke, and I tackled a remote stretch of the Appalachian Trail in southwest Virginia's National Forest, craving solitude. Parking at a trailhead, we hiked mid-morning through crisp air and vibrant leaves, passing one hiker all day. Dusk found us at a shelter, already occupied by 3 men whose intense stares unsettled Ashley, prompting us to push on to a hidden clearing off a side trail. We camped, ate, and slept by 9:30, but I woke to deliberate footsteps crunching leaves. Ashley and Brooke were alert, so I grabbed my pistol, crept out, and heard a twig snap 15 feet away. My flashlight revealed a figure ducking behind a tree, followed by 2 others fleeing in opposite directions, likely the sheltermen, possibly targeting us as easy prey. I retreated, finding Ashley guarding the tent. We stayed awake, tense at every sound, and hiked hard the next day, feeling watched. At sunset, we camped in a concealed ravine, skipping a fire for safety. Around 2 a.m., I dozed off, waking to rustling near our gear. Spotting a figure by our packs, I chased them off, then saw 4 lights people with a machete watching from a creek bed 50 yards away. Ashley fired a warning shot and we fled through the night, scratched and exhausted, until a truck picked us up 36 hours later. No motive was clear. They knew we were armed, yet persisted. Police found no leads, and 2 missing hikers later raised suspicions, though cases were deemed unconnected. The woods felt twisted by isolation. The nighttime intrusion. 3 years ago, my wife Claire and I, avid hikers, resumed our Appalachian adventures after our daughter Leah's first birthday, choosing the rugged Roan Highlands for its isolation. Familiar with the region's folklore and past scares, we sought the forest's quiet embrace, camping 500 meters off the trail in a mossy clearing. The first 2 days were peaceful, meeting friendly hikers, but one couple, a red-haired woman in a straw hat and a jittery tall man, asked oddly specific questions about Leah, their intensity peaking when the woman reached for her. We sensed unease, but dismissed it as fatigue. On the 3rd morning, we found multiple footprints around our tent, and Leah's items bottle, plate, utensils gone, though food remained. Convinced it was that couple, we planned a grueling 2-day return. That night, Claire took first watch, waking me to report footsteps in the vegetation. Armed with our pistol, I shouted a warning into the silence, staying alert for 2 hours before exhaustion overtook me. I awoke to Claire screaming the woman held our gun, the man half in the tent. I threw ash in her face, disarming her with a blow, and threatened the man, who fled with her. Too deep in the woods to leave, we waited for dawn, hiking back with a crying Leah, reporting to police who found no evidence, closing the case. Weeks ago, another couple's similar report reopened it, but the woman's empty stare lingers, turning the forest from refuge to a place of dread. Unsettling encounters in a college co-op. The silent observer. As a sophomore, I, Jordan, faced a housing crunch after losing my dorm spot and settled into a co-op near campus, a 3-house cluster offering affordable rent, despite the commute. With my bike, the distance didn't bother me much. The community housed mostly students, with a few alumni, TAs, and older learners. But one resident stood out. An older woman, possibly late 50s, with graying hair and a limp, suggesting a past injury. She was reserved, her face often blank, and I wondered if she had a university Thai faculty or alum, though no one clarified. My first odd encounter was in our shared kitchen, unusual since the other houses had their own. She stood there silently as we cooked and chatted, her gaze lingering. I felt she watched me specifically, though it seemed improbable, and no one else reacted, hinting at unspoken knowledge. Later, doing homework, I glimpsed her outside my window, standing in the cold street, staring up. I waved awkwardly, instantly regretting it, as she jumped excitedly before dashing to her house, confirming she'd targeted my room. Disturbed, I asked a housemate, who advised ignoring her, claiming she'd always been there, though he knew little. A senior from her house revealed she was linked to the university, eccentric but non-violent, with the property manager deciding residence. Unsettled, I tried to dismiss her, but encounters escalated one night. I nearly collided with her outside my door past midnight. She walked off silently, as if I'd intruded. More incidents followed, catching her snooping. Then, I lost my room key vital since I locked my door unlike others, and a few nights later I awoke to bumping from my closet. Grabbing courage, I opened it to find her inside, a tie around her neck and a kitchen knife in hand. Startled, she lunged, but I disarmed her frail frame, pinning her as she fought. Housemates and police intervened. She was arrested, my key found on her. Turns out she was the property manager's sister, mentally unstable, housed covertly. He faced charges for negligence. I pity her, but her attack haunts me, and I'll never forget that night as I near graduation. The phantom party. Living with my spouse Ethan for 2 decades in our quiet 2-story home, I, Clara, relished retirement on our porch, knitting or listening to true crime podcasts. Last year, a new neighbor, Ryan, moved across the street, driving a sleek SUV and dressing sharply, suggesting wealth or pretense. He was kind, bonding with Ethan over sports, and worked freelance in digital media lucrative, judging by his talk of stocks. Months passed normally, with Ryan waving as he left, until I noticed a young woman in a red coupe visiting when he was absent, using a key. Assuming she was his girlfriend, I thought little of it, until I saw them argue fiercely in his driveway one day. She stormed off, and her later unannounced visits puzzled me. Ethan urged me to mind my own business, but one night, sirens awoke us. Police and an ambulance swarmed Ryan's house. He was stretchered out, bloodied, while the woman Ellie was cuffed, blank-faced. A week later, Ryan explained she'd stolen his spare key, tracked his location, planted cameras, and attacked him with a knife after a breakup dispute, nearly killing him. He moved out, fearing her associates, and we lost touch. I hope he's safe. No one should endure that. The neighbor's mystery. Seeking a fresh start after a tough breakup, I, Liam, moved to a peaceful neighborhood with spaced-out homes, drawn by its low crime. My next-door house, unusually close and massive, seemed fit for a large family, but I was wrong. Meeting neighbors, I saved the closest for last, exhausted from small talk with successful parents. A young guy with a mullet, younger than me, opened the door, surprising me. Introducing myself, he grinned, welcoming me as a peer, easing my outsider fears. Calling himself Owen, he invited me for a drink, but hesitated, citing work, vaguely, finance, and lived alone, baffling me given the house's size. We exchanged numbers, but he stayed elusive, never hosting or leaving, like a ghost. Working from my 3rd-floor office overlooking his property, I noticed his habits, or lack thereof. One Wednesday at 2 a.m., loud music woke me. 7 cars lined his driveway for a party. Knocking went unanswered, and inside I found shoes, but no people, just a recording of party sounds. A basement door led to older men in work gear, a bleach smell, and grinding noises, hinting at danger. Fleeing, I saw them search outside, arguing. No music, no crime to report, and neighbors claimed ignorance of the noise. Owen's car and the cars vanished. His house, overgrown and piled with packages, remains empty. I ponder confronting him if he returns, uneasy about the unanswered mystery. Chilling lakehouse encounters, the snowmobile ambush. A few winters back, After finalizing my divorce, I, Ethan, sought solace with my partner Mia. She proposed a quiet retreat, leading us to rent a modern lake house in upstate New York for a week. Nestled amid woods with sparse, mostly vacant neighboring properties, it offered the isolation I craved, especially off-season. The host provided detailed instructions and a key location, but upon arrival, a small package awaited us on the steps, no return address, just a note saying, "Enjoy your stay, stay warm," accompanied by a box of matches. Mia joked about local quirks, and we dismissed it as a quirky welcome. The next 2 days were idyllic snowy hikes, fireside warmth, and silence, though snow fell steadily, enhancing the untouched feel. Our master bedroom, with large lake-view windows and a skylight, let us hear snowflakes, a soothing detail. On the third night, past midnight, I awoke to a faint mechanical sound amid a worsening blizzard. Peering out, I spotted a snowmobile on the ice, its driver stopping and waving frantically, seemingly in distress and facing our house. Waking Mia, I dressed and stepped onto the deck, where the woman shouted about losing her son in the storm. Rushing to help, I neared her on solid ice, noting her fur coat and braid, but her claim of him running away raised doubts. How could that happen unnoticed? Then she asked about the matches, smiling, and pulled a gun, demanding my wallet and phone. Handing them over, I fled as she sped off. Back inside, Mia had called police, who arrived an hour later, finding no tracks in the fresh snow. They suspected a boat ramp entry, but searches yielded nothing. The host refunded us, denying knowledge of the package, fueling my suspicion of a setup maybe tied to my ex, though unproven. The ordeal left me wary, questioning the motive behind such a calculated theft. The attic intruder. My family owns a Northern California lake house, a 2-story retreat with an attic where my sister and I, as kids, camped with sleeping bags, peering through a small window at the lake. As teens, we outgrew it, and after our grandparents' passing, my parents filled the attic with their heirlooms, a bittersweet tribute. Visits dwindled due to our studies and their work, leaving it largely vacant, maintained only by landscapers. Years ago, they leased it to a local veteran, an antique restorer, small, disfigured, with a gruff demeanor that unnerved me. Dad, honoring his service, trusted him, despite our unease, as the rent covered upkeep. But landscapers reported him watching children oddly, prompting Mom's outrage. At lease's end, Dad fabricated a renovation excuse to evict him, and we helped him move out. A year later, post-sister's graduation, we visited with our new black lab, Bear. After dinner in town, we returned to find Bear bloodied at the stairs, the attic hatch ajar with a flashlight glow. Dad climbed up, finding the tenant, and Mom's screams brought police, who found our house key on him. Bear survived, but Dad refused charges, sparking a family rift. The incident soured my childhood memories, and we haven't returned. The lake trap. Last summer, at 20, I, Owen, joined my friend Lucas from a wealthy family with multiple properties at their secluded lake house. The lake's exclusivity felt empowering, lined with dark, underused vacation homes perfect for his wild parties. That night, just us after my breakup, we drank on the dock when I noticed a flashing light across the lake. Lucas identified it as SOS in Morse code, confirmed by my phone. It stopped abruptly, hinting at trouble, maybe a fall or kidnapping. Too young to drink legally and wary of police due to a past DUI, we opted to investigate, arming ourselves with switchblades. Kayaking across, we reached a dilapidated house where the light originated, finding an unlocked window. Inside was barren, and upstairs, a projector by the window suggested a trap. Hearing a closet door and footsteps, we fled, but the kayak was gone. A large figure chased us. We swam to Lucas's dock, shivering, and called police. They found nothing, no recent signs, just an abandoned shell scolding us for not reporting sooner. Lucas's parents threatened legal action, but I'm left wondering who set the trap and why, grateful we escaped.